In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Today's parable that was just read to us is one that we all know very well. A story about the owner who had the land and leased it to the tenants, and they didn't like it very much when he sent the servants to come get the harvest back, and they beat them, and then he ended up sending his own son, and they killed his son. It's very easy for us to look at that parable, and usually when we look at that, when it comes to the owner of the vineyard, that one's easy. We all know that that's God. And then usually we look at ourselves as like the tenants, and we see how they were disobedient to God's servants and how they didn't obey what God's servants wanted them to do, and they kind of misunderstood things, and they got themselves in a lot of trouble. And we can see this gospel as a gospel of warning to those who are disobeying God and all that kind of stuff. But I'll be honest with you, when I was reading the gospel, I had put myself in a little bit different position. I didn't quite relate with the tenants as much as I related with someone else who appeared in the gospel. It wasn't the owner, and it wasn't the tenants. There was another person or a group of people who appeared in today's gospel that I think you can relate with as well. And that group was the servants. You remember the story that was just read to us. The master calls one servant to go to these tenants and get back his money. Let me read to you what it says exactly. First he sends one servant. It says, the vine dressers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. So the master has a bunch of servants. He's a rich man. And he takes one. He says, you're going to go and collect this and that and bring it back to me. This poor man comes back beaten with nothing in his hand. So what does the master say? Common sense says, again, he sent another servant. He says, okay, now it's your turn. And they did the same thing. They beat him also, and on top of that, they treated him shamefully, and again sent him away empty-handed. Now the master comes back a third time, and he looks at the guy next in line. Now if you're the guy next in line, what are you thinking at this point in time? What's going through your mind right now as you sent one beaten, you sent two beaten and treated shamefully, and now you get asked to go? Maybe the results will be different. Well, probably not. Third guy. Again, he sent a third, and this time they wounded him and cast him out. Every successive guy who went ended up getting more and more hurt than the guy before him. I started to think about this situation right here, and I started to ask myself a question. Why in the world would these servants continue to go like this? Were the servants crazy? I don't think the servants were forced. Because if God is the owner, God doesn't force anything. Everything's free will. So I don't think that the servants by any means were forced to go. I think that they voluntarily and willingly went, fully knowing that there's a very good likelihood that they're going to come back beaten and treated shamefully and hurt the last guy and still come back empty-handed. Let me ask you a question. Can you relate to these servant guys? Can you relate to this experience? You see, the life of Christianity oftentimes is a life where it seems like all we do is get beaten and beaten and beaten, doesn't it? I was speaking with someone the other day who was telling me the same thing, but he used a nice expression. He said, I feel like a punching bag these days. If it's not the devil punching me, then it's people. And if it's not people, it's my family. And if it's not my family, it's myself. And it just feels like just one fight after another. And it seems like the owner is just sending us to get beaten. Couldn't the owner have stopped it? If I'm these guys who are sitting here, the servant guys, there's a very important question that you got to ask yourself if you're the servant. Let's think logically. First guy got beaten, came back. Second guy got beaten, came back. So first question I asked the master, logically, let me just make a suggestion here. What's the benefit of me going and getting beaten as well? What's the value in that? Most likely they're not going to get back your money. They haven't repented anyway, anything like that. Besides, what's your plan anyway? Isn't the master in the end, didn't it say that in the end he's going to destroy them and wipe them out and utterly cast them away? Well, I got a suggestion for you, master. Just switch the order of the events. Why send me get beaten and then wipe them out? Why not wipe them out and then send me? What's the point of doing it that way? You know, there's one verse in the Bible that if we could remove one verse from the Bible, it would be John chapter 16, verse 33. little help in the back there for me, please. Give me a click. John chapter 16, verse 33. If there's one verse in the Bible that we could get rid of, it'd be this one. It says, in the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Why? Why does it have to be tribulation in the world? Says who? God, you're God. God, you can make it so there's no tribulation, right? God can make it so that the devil doesn't tempt me. God can make it so there's never sicknesses. God can make it so there's never illnesses. Why does it have to be tribulation? And why, if you're going to overcome the world anyway, why not overcome it now before I suffer? Why wait for me to suffer, live a hard life, go through all these kinds of trials and tribulations, and then deliver me in the end? Why not just switch the order? Why does it have to be like this? See, the thing is, I think a lot of us know what it's like to be these servants. Try to live a good life, right? You try to do good. You try to pray. You try to fast. You do your quiet time. You read your Bible. You spend time with your family. You try to do the right. You're not an angel, but you try to do your best. But it just seems like the more you try to do good, the more there's something that's working against you. Why? No, it's on. Sorry, thank you. My technical support here. Why? Why it has to be that way? Why it seems like the more good I do, the more there's something bad that's working against me? Well, that's the question that I want to answer. I want us to discuss a little bit today. And I think if we look at these servants, we can see a lot of stuff that's similar between their life and our life. The first thing, the question of why it has to be this way, why can't God overcome them right now, is very important that you understand that in order for you to grow, it has to be this way. You cannot grow spiritually unless you are tested. This is the way it is in every area of life. Now, as soon as I said test, no one likes the word test, especially students. Test is a bad thing. But tests is also a good thing, because test is the only way to move from one level to the next. How's the only way to get to 10th grade? To pass the test in 9th grade. If you're coming from Egypt or whatever and you say, I belong in this level of math, they'll say, fine, take a test. If you pass, you go. If you fail, you don't go. A test is the only way to go to the next level. What's the only way to get a driver's license? You take a test. And if you pass, you get it. If you don't, you don't. The only way to become a lawyer is to pass a test. All right? So a test, even though we don't like it, actually is a good thing because it moves us up. And the same thing spiritually. You want to move up spiritually? You want more faith? You want to grow deeper in your relationship with God? That's great. But there has to be a test. Because a faith that is not tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. You don't know what's really there. You don't know how strong that faith is unless you've tested it. I don't know how strong my muscles are unless I have tried to lift something that is really, really heavy and seen that I can do it. And like I said, it works this way in every area of life. Think about it. If you go buy a car, you want a car you expect that has been tested. How likely would you be to buy a car if you found one that said, $1,000 off, but brakes have never been tested? Hopefully they work. How likely would you be to buy that car? We're not sure if they work or not. We've never even tested it. Story one time of a lady who was going for surgery. She was really, really nervous, and she was all tense. The doctor came in joking and laughing. He said, why are you so uptight? She said, it's just that this is my first time in surgery, so I'm just a little bit nervous. I've never done this before. Doctor said, no problem. This is my first time in surgery too. That didn't make her feel very good. We like things that have been tested. We like things that we have tried and seen they succeed, and therefore we can try them again. Well, you know what? God is the same way too. If you say that you want to be great and you say that you want to grow spiritually, there has to be tests. The test could come in lots of different forms. Come in physical hardships, could come in emotional, could come in relational, could be spiritual, could be a time of temptation, could be all kinds of different stuff. But you need that test to show God that you're ready to take the next step. If you were here last night for Ashaya and you heard the gospel, God prepared us for this lesson with last night's gospel. If you were paying attention, last night's gospel was about the time when the apostles were in the boat and their faith was tested. How? It started raining, and it started wind blowing, and the waves started pushing them all around, and they started to get scared. And then Jesus calmly appeared on the scene, said, don't worry, I got it all under control, and he takes care of the situation. What that story taught them and teaches us as well is that when the storm is blowing in life and it seems like there's no way out and it seems like the temptation is too hard and it seems like there's just so much stuff going on around you that you can't breathe, you can't stand, you can't do nothing. When it just seems like life is overwhelming, relax. Jesus is there. You take care of it, no problem. But are you going to trust him? It's not about the saving and not saving. It's about the faith and not faith. Either way, Jesus is going to save them. But the question is, did they have the faith to grow or not have that faith to grow? Very nice verse I found in the Bible. It came from the quiet time earlier this week. James chapter 1, verse 12. Listen to this verse. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful verse. And you know my favorite verse in it? My favorite word in it is the word endures. Because it says that a life of blessing, a life of the crown of life, nothing better, is not for those who defeat temptation, but is those who endure temptation. You see, the apostles' job wasn't to beat the storm. The apostles' job wasn't to stand up and make the rain stop. It was just to get through the storm. These servants, these great servants who faithfully served the master here, it wasn't their job to go and collect the money from the tenants. If so, they failed. It wasn't their job to go and beat the tenants and give them the money. Their job was just to endure. It was just to go faithfully, take their beating like a man, and come back. That's it. God doesn't expect you to defeat the world. That's his job. He expects you to just endure the world, and that makes it much, much nicer. How? How do I endure the world? The world is difficult. The world is hard. The world is powerful. How I endure all the temptation. When Anthony, you don't understand. I confess 10,000 times the same thing. As soon as I confess, boom, I fall 10 more times. Every time I turn around, there's temptation. I can't get past it. I can't get past this time. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to endure? Well, I'll give you another little tip here. Focus on the reward, not on the cost. Focus on what's at the end of the enduring, not what's happening in the middle of the enduring. Back to our friends, the servants, right here from the story. Again, let's be practical. I don't think the master forced them to go. I think they willingly went. Practically speaking, why would they go? Were they crazy? Were they lunatics? Were they just stupid people? They didn't have any brain, so that's why they were happy to go get beaten? Why would they do it? Think about it. How about you? Would you do it? Would you? I use these nice three gentlemen right here as my example. Would you guys do it? Well, is there anything that would convince you to do it? Anything at all? Let's put it this way. Let me give you a more practical example. Forget about getting beaten by the tenants. Let's say I ask you to do me a favor. You like me, I like you. We want to do each other a favor here. I need a ride. I'm going to New York on the weekend, on a Friday, and I need a ride. And it's kind of trafficy, so you may need to leave work a little bit early, and I'm not going to come back to you really, really late. So 2 weekends ago, I went, and the 4-hour drive took me, let's say it was a bunch of traffic and rain and wrecks, and it took me 12 hours. And then I spent the whole day, and now we arrived so late. And then the next weekend, I went again, and someone else drove me, and it took 15 hours. And then I ask you to drive me, and I expect it's going to be even worse. Hey, I got a better idea. You drive me on Labor Day weekend. You drive me on the Friday of Labor Day weekend. Would you do it? Would you do it? Would you or not? Some of you are sitting there saying, well, in front of your face, yes, but behind your back, no. Because you know what, Anthony, I love you this now, but I'd rather just pay the money here, take a plane. Hey, it's on me. Why do we have to sit in traffic for 15, 16 hours? Why are you going to torture us like that? Take the money here, go. Well, let me ask you a question. Is there anything I could do to convince you to go? Anything at all? Come on, don't be honest with yourself. Don't sit there like you're all pure and holy people. If I offered you money, you would do it. If I said, here's $1,000, if I had $10,000, you'd do it. You take a day off of work, it'd be happy. $10,000. Were you kidding me? Yeah, you would do it. If I told you here's a piece of gold, yes, you would do it. New car, new house, yes. There is a cost, there's a reward, and if we're offered that reward, we'd do it. Pat on the back, maybe not. But like I said, if there's a reward, we'd do it. I think these servants was the same way. I don't think these servants went against their will. I think they were happy to go, and I don't think they were just really, really nice people. Yes, please let me be beaten today. I don't think they were like that. That's foolish. I think there's a reward in it for them. What? What's their reward? Has to be a reward. No person with half a brain would do this unless there was a reward. There had to be something to make them say, I'm willing to go. You know what? I want to go. I know I will be beaten. I know I will be treated shamefully. And I know I will be injured. Yet I want to go. What? What could it be? Unfortunately for us, the gospel today doesn't say. But we're not going to stop there. Started to think for myself, is there anyone else that I can think of that lived this kind of servant life, that got beaten a lot and willingly went into it? And of course came the example of my man, St. Paul. St. Paul was like this, like times 10. St. Paul was always beaten. He was whipped. He was stoned. They did all kinds of stuff to him. One time, if you were paying attention to the Acts of the Apostles today, you heard about an example. He went into a city and he started a riot. Okay, there was a riot and a mob scene, and he was in the middle of it all around him. This didn't faze him. He's ready to go back in and preach to more people. One time, they were beating him. They threw stones at him. They had stoned him and thought he was dead. Everything was bleeding. Everything was gushing out of everywhere. They said, okay, no more stones. He's dead. They took him. They dragged him outside the city. They kicked him once or twice for good luck, and they left him. A few hours later, days later, who knows, he gets up. What does he do? Walks right back in the city and goes back to preaching. St. Paul was the epitome of the servant who goes to get beaten and is happy to do so. So let's see with St. Paul, if maybe he can tell us what that reward was, because there had to be something. There had to be something that makes him go and endure all this kind of suffering. Found a nice verse here, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16 and 18. He's talking about his sufferings. He says, therefore we do not lose heart, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. St. Paul is saying there's two realms in this world. There's what you can see and what you can't see. And if you count all the number of things in the world that you can see, it is very small compared to the number of things in this world that you cannot see. All right? The stuff that you cannot see is more valuable and is more numerous than the stuff that you can see. And what St. Paul says is, the stuff that you can see, yes, I get beaten. And but it's not that much. It's just a light affliction compared to the stuff that I get that you can't see. So there is a reward there, but it's not something that we can see, but it's something that he could see. How is that? How am I supposed to try to get a reward that I can't see? Let me try to explain to you this way. This past Friday, I learned this lesson very simply about I prayed the liturgy. Liturgy finished at 2, and I had to go, and I was going to bless someone's house. So on the way, I was starving, absolutely starving after I finished the liturgy. So I was taking, Mark Nechla was coming with me to go, and we were going to go bless the house and do this and that and do some other stuff. I'm starving, he's starving. Luckily, someone had made me lunch over here, and they left it here. So I grabbed it on the way, and I took it to the car, and we started driving. Looked in the bag, and there was 3 sandwiches. I said, okay, you take one, I'll take one, and whatever. It's going to be Siami, so whatever. Opened it up. It was Tameya. Tameya's not that bad. Took a bite. Man, that was some good Tameya. It's the best Tameya I ever had in my life. Started eating it more. Man, that stuff is good. It had juices and spices and all kinds of good stuff. I looked at him and said, do you like the Tameya? He said, yeah, it's good. I looked at the bag. There was only 3 sandwiches. He had one, I had one. What do you think I did after that? Man, you better believe I started eating that Tameya as fast as I could so I could finish first, so that I could say, oh, you're going to have that? Oh, okay, I'll take it. That's fine, sure. So I finished as quickly as I could, and I had that, and luckily, thanks be to God, I'm a faster eater than Mark, so I was able to eat that second Tameya sandwich. I was starving, and that thing tasted so good. But let's say, for example, that, let's say in the magical world that we don't live in, let's say the fast would have ended at 4 p.m. This was at 2 p.m., 2:15, whatever, and I ate these tamei and I loved them. Let's say that the fast would have finished at 4 p.m., and at 4 p.m. I could eat anything in the world that I wanted. Would I have been as likely to eat the tamei? Now, the tamei was good, no doubt, but still, you can't compare Siami food to Futari food, okay? Like, the best fasting food in the world is still well below the lowest meat product in the world, okay? Like, it's not even, it's two realms, okay? It's two different planes. So, would I have been willing to wait? Sure, but wait a minute. I'd have been hungry in the short term. I was really hungry at the time. Would I have been willing to wait 2 hours if I'd have known there was a slice of pizza on the other side? Burger? Would I have been willing to wait? Oh, you better believe I'd have been willing to wait. And everyone in their right mind would have been willing to wait because the reward is that good. Yeah, I may have been hungry for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you know what? That's a light affliction compared to the burger on the other side. You see what I'm saying? What St. Paul is saying right here is the same thing. He's saying, yes, there will be times where you'll be a little hungry. Yes, there'll be times where you don't get what you want right away. But compared to the reward, compared to what's on the other side of that test, it is no comparison. You see, the world offers us tamei. The best tamei, the best fasting food in this world, doesn't even compare with one smell of meat. Best thing this world can offer doesn't compare to what God can give you. The best reward that anyone can give you in the scene, the stuff that you see, isn't even a quarter of a half of a fraction of a percent of what God can give you in 1 second. That's what St. Paul is trying to say right here. Now, the question that you should be thinking right now, that I'm thinking is, can I have both? Can I have both? Can I have the tamei and the burger? Can I? No, I mean, I'm driving, and I have one hand to drive and one hand to hold a sandwich. So it can only hold one sandwich at a time. And if I'd eaten the tamei, I probably wouldn't have been as hungry for the burger. The same thing in this world. You can't have both. The only way to get the unseen is to let go of the seen. But too many of us, we can't. We live in such an instant gratification kind of world that the second there's some pain, that the second the stuff doesn't go exactly the way we want it, we give up. Give me any fasting food. Just give me the best thing you got available. But look, man, you wait. I'm going to bring out some good food a little bit. No, I can't wait. Just give me whatever you got right now. I'm hungry right now. I need to fix it right now. You're lost. That's what St. Paul is saying. So back to the question I asked before. I still didn't answer the question. What's the reward? I told you what the reward is not. It's not something you can see. But what is it? St. Paul says that reward is more valuable to me than anything else in the world. What is it? Is it a dream? Is it a vision? Is it God like speaking to me? Is it healing? What is it? Stock market success? What is it? You know the answer? I don't have any idea. I can't tell you what your reward is because it's only for you. It's something that I can't tell you. I can only see my reward. In heaven, there's a storehouse full of boxes of rewards, and each one has a name on it. And I can only open mine. I can't open yours. But I'll tell you what, if yours is in the same place that mine's coming from, that St. Paul's is coming from, that everyone else is coming from, believe me, you want to see it. I don't know what it is. I can tell you what some of the rewards God gives are, but that's limiting God. God doesn't work in small ways. Yeah, God worked this way for him or her, this and that. But God can do amazing things for you that no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor come upon the heart of man, the things which God has planned for those who love him. I can't tell you what the reward is, but I can tell you where to get it. The reward is with him. Actually, let me rephrase that. The reward is him. The reward is not a gift. The reward is Jesus himself. And St. Paul was able to have that reward. And if you've never, as the Psalms say, taste and see that the Lord is good, you're missing out on life. Some of you are sitting there and saying, I don't know what in the world you're talking about, Abuna Anthony. It's too abstract. It's not tangible for me. You know what I say? That stinks for you. But you know what? You can find it. You can go get it. Because the box is sitting there with your name, and Jesus is sitting there. And I promise you, in his presence, there's all kinds of good stuff. I'm not saying go so he gives you peace. I'm not saying go so he gives you joy. I'm saying go, he is peace. I'm saying go, he is joy. And in his presence, everything is good. And that's the only place you're going to find the reward. What was the reward for these servants? You know what the reward was? Someone told me this after the first liturgy. We had a very nice talk. You know what the reward was? The reward was the master's house that they came back to. The reward was being a servant. The reward was being in the house where they could talk to the master freely. They could share, they could express, he could fix. Everything was good in the master's house. That's all they wanted. All they wanted to do was be in the master's house. And the same thing is available for you too. Yes, there is affliction in the world. Yes, there is tribulation. Yes, there's temptation. Yes, there's illness. Yes, there's problems. Yes, there's disasters. Yes, 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 yes. But the more your affliction is, the more you need the reward to balance it. Because if you don't have the reward, that affliction looks mighty big instead of it. You know, sometimes we look at those people who are suffering in the flesh, who are living in, let's say, serving in Africa, or monks, or helping the poor, and we say, man, I feel bad for those people. God bless those people. I feel bad for them. They're really suffering. Are you sure about that? I think that if they came here today, they would say they feel bad for us. We look at them and say they're foolish, they're throwing their lives away. I believe they would come here and say the exact same things to us. Who's really the fool in this whole thing? 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25 is a very nice verse. It says that the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. Who's really the fool? The one who gives up the seen and takes the unseen, or vice versa? These servants were laughed at by the tenants. These are foolish servants. They just come here getting beaten and beaten and beaten, and we're enjoying the good life in the vineyard. Are you sure? They were seen as foolish and they were seen as weak. And I'm telling you that in the master's eyes, they were neither foolish nor weak. They were wise and strong at the same time. Look, I know that these days there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, whether it's temptations, whether it's whatever. I know that God is doing great works in the lives of many people in this church. And he's doing great things inside this church. And I know that the devil isn't going to just sit by and watch it. I expect that, like I said, my friend told me, you may be a punching bag for the devil. You may be a punching bag for all the stuff that he's got planned for you. But I want to give you hope. And I want to tell you that who cares? The affliction doesn't matter. It's the reward that matters. Keep your eyes focused on the prize. Keep looking towards that reward which is in the presence of Jesus. And I promise you, there is not one test. You know when you pass a test in like kindergarten or whatever, they give you little stickies, little stickers, little things? I promise you, Jesus has like 10,000 of them stickers just waiting for you to pass the test. And I promise you, there's not one time, there's not one storm, there's not one temptation, there's not one nothing that goes on in anyone's life that he's not waiting with a big old bunch of stickers to reward you and to bless you and to give you nothing better than him himself. And glory be to God forever. Amen.